A crazy clutch with the S12K is all that Colombia needed to get themselves back into the running for today, Felix. They did everything they could that game. They did everything perfectly. They closed it out in the end. But it just doesn't feel like it can be enough. They have to pull off 4 games like this, realistically. They have to pull off 4 games like this to qualify back to the World Esports Championship.
Yes. And unfortunately, if you were to ask me about my prediction, I don't think that's going to happen, just based off of what we've seen. But it's a good start. It's a good start nonetheless. But as you've said, due to the fact that some of these top teams are just running away with it. And now Brazil has come back from what feels like a little slump. Even though it's realistically only been 1 or 2 games that they've really just not performed. It's getting even tougher for anyone else to catch up.
Yeah.
Look. Chile. I know they struggled today as well, but they've had such an amazing day yesterday that I think even at the end of last day, we were already like, wait, this is actually only one single spot that realistically is open to everyone else. And that also means that Brazil is going to be under the focus now. And I think now that point has kind of been reached where if you don't focus Brazil enough, despite it only being, I want to say only being like 20, 30 points difference, but if you don't focus them and they keep on having good games, no matter how well you play, they're going to run away with it. So I think what changes now, and that's the point I'm trying to make, is that some of these teams will potentially try to increasingly focus Brazil. So if they figure out what Brazil is, I could see some isolated fights happening, something that we haven't really seen before. And no one has really tried their luck in terms of fighting Brazil. And if that starts, who knows? Maybe things are going to change, but I think teams also need to do this now. And if they don't, with the way Brazil has played now, they'll keep on playing the games consistent that they have a chance of winning.
Yeah, and like you said, right, it starts getting out of reach if the top teams keep performing. And right now, the spot that we're talking about is Brazil. There's a small chance that Chile actually just fumbles it to a point where we do not see them in a first place anymore. But even then, a team like Argentina still has a 30-point gap to catch up with 4 more games to go. That's not likely. That's not something you expect to see. Maybe today is the day, and we've seen crazier things in some of these other qualifiers, especially the European one comes to mind with crazy comebacks towards the end. But it starts getting out of reach quickly. And even if you're just talking about the gap that you have now between second and third, that's already a gap that's hard to breach. And then you have to go in a little bit further down to that 4th, 5th, and 6th place who are all tied on 54 points. They need an even crazier performance. And playing 3 good games might not even be enough. So we'll have to wait and see. I think Brazil is a team that should be easily able to withstand that pressure. And even if they get some extra attention, even if they get some extra aggression towards them, to me, they really feel like a team that can turn that into an advantage, that can turn that into kills for themselves. And that can really just come out ahead of a stressful situation like that.
Yeah. Couldn't agree more. As ladies and gentlemen, we are heading into the next game. Match number 3 of today. Match number 9 in total for this World Esports Championship regional qualifier. We're still in the Americas region. In case you couldn't figure that out by the teams participating and the countries especially participating. All these different esports federations sending the best they have. The best they have available to some degree as well. I think the United States, obviously, to give you guys an example, could have potentially sent a couple of more experienced players, but as I've also said before, these guys are putting their weight. Yes, not in terms of having a shot at qualification, but at least in terms of showing us good PUBG Mobile in the last game. I want to highlight the United States once more. Beautifully played out through that southern side. Pretty methodical, very disciplined. Just the last couple of zones really not going that way, and you need that tiny bit of luck as well to qualify in a best of 12.
Yeah, and that's where things come back to bite you. That's where if you had the circles and they didn't really manage to just make the most out of them, that's where that really comes back to bite you. And that's something that we can talk about for Argentina here, where back-to-back, really good early zones. Sanok and the first ERANGEL, really, really good early zones. Couldn't really get anything going in those games. 2-point average, where Brazil is running away with a 12-point average in those 2 games without really getting fed. And now maybe, sometimes you have days where the last 4 games are just really rough they're just really hard to play. The circle keeps running away from you. Teams keep trying to gatekeep you. And you don't get the chances anymore. So every chance you get, you got to make the most out of it. You got to take it, grab it by the horns, and get your points while you still can. Because with a little bit of variance in PUBG, you're not going to get chances every single game. Not every single game is going to be winnable. So if you didn't make the most out of it in the earlier games, that can just sometimes come back to bite you and really leave you hanging and really leave you thinking about the last few days with a bit of sadness, because you've played such a good last day, but it just wasn't enough anymore.
Yeah. Well, as we've said before, I guess we're about to find out if all these predictions and all these points we made will come true. What we do know is one team only in this specific round could catch up and change things at the top of the leaderboards. I'm talking about the 1 and 2 spot, the qualification spot where Chile and Brazil are obviously in right now, and that is Argentina, the one team that could just realistically, based off of a big win, catch up to Brazil. Colombia, that's just not going to be possible. It's 30 points. They would need to get 20 kill dinner, which, as we said before, is something that's just super unrealistic. I said it before as well. I was so surprised to see someone do it. I'm not surprised to see Chile do it. To some degree I am, but not really. But just the fact that someone was able to do it. Doesn't even matter who. That's just such a feat to accomplish. Something that I thought going into this lobby, despite there obviously being some heavy hitters, like Brazil, like Chile, something that I thought was going to be impossible. Just everything that needs to come together has to come together in order to get that done. You need to meet so many teams, you need to get so many isolated fights, you need to have a little bit of luck as well in terms of loot, in terms of finding enough healing, in terms of finding enough potential to loot the bodies that you actually get as well, because you can't just run from fight to fight. You'll not have enough bullets, you'll not have enough medic stuff, you'll not have enough, obviously, utility, but they're able to do all of that. And without any one of these steps, you're not going to be able to get 19 frags and a win with only 11 teams. So, good on Chile, in my opinion, just based off of that one single round where they've still, up until this point, have gotten almost a third of that point. I think just based off of that, I really want them to qualify. I think that's a performance that has to be on it.
Yeah. Record performance in that sense. As it's just crazy what that does and what that does to the scoreboard as well. Remember them just blasting past literally everybody from last to first, as they're now blasting past that western side, past Suriname on the western road, getting themselves into a good position in a circle that was very empty when it popped, and they are going deep right now, things you'd love to say. For the Chilean squad, USA, a little bit further off to the eastern side of things, looting up nicely and peacefully. No open and early fight for them this time, but it's not too late. They still have a few minutes in phase 1 to make sure they get a classic USA fight in. And there's the heroes of the last match.
Achilles and his team Malkin, especially with that big performance. The heroes, as you said, yes indeed. The heroes for Colombia, not really the heroes for anyone else, unfortunately, because everyone will be fighting for these top spots. And Dominican Republic especially, they'll be kicking themselves. Losing that opportunity for a win in the very first round. And then another team comes up right below them and actually ties them with a single game in a round where they had no business winning it. So, Dominican Republic has to bring things back. They have to shake that off. 54 points at the moment. They are nowhere close. Be reminded, there's 4 matches remaining, including this one. So 4 more chances to close the distance on 30 points for all these 3 teams in the middle. That's, yes, not unthinkable. But as you said before as well, it means Brazil just really can't perform now. If they do, that 30 points difference is going to shift to maybe 40, maybe back to 35, back to 40. And they just need a couple of points to keep shifting it up and down. And with the way we've seen Brazil play just last game, and especially the first game as well, yes, they obviously choked. We talked about this. but they played the way I actually wanted them to play from the very beginning. If they just do it often enough, they'll find big rounds. And if last game was an indication of that, I don't know what is.
5 points a game, and Brazil qualifies to the World Esports Cup. I think that's an assumption I'm willing to make. If they don't completely falter this and completely fumble it, they should just be okay. And they've done the job for now. If Argentina doesn't go crazy, which I think is possible, that could be enough for them to make it in. But someone can go crazy. It's just hard to believe that a lot of these teams down there can go crazy. It's likely that one team somewhere between 3rd and 6th qualifies. Multiple of them, unlikely. One of them can have an absolute standout performance. Circle now is going right onto Brazil, right onto that north side around the river. It's a bit of a 50-50 circle still if it goes north or south, but a lot of the teams already in solid positions. The US trying to scout out that bridge, trying to scout out that wizard tower as well. I'm not sure if they're going to cross the road here, if they're going to cross the river. They might be the first team to the cube and slightly beat out Brazil as the 3rd place team there. We saw them for a second. Argentina miles off the zone still.
Yeah, that's that's unfortunately quite a big distance, excuse me, for them to grab a good spot in phase 2, but if we've seen anything come out of yesterday, there's no real correlation with 11 teams. And, you know, grabbing positions early, we talked about this. Not even last game. Colombia was one of these teams. We talked about Joaco being the agent of chaos. Joaco was the one that held them back, even though he wasn't even there anymore for an entire 10 minutes, and they still managed to win the round. As Guatemala is now defending this push, and Papizal, unfortunately, the biggest fragment for that lineup, goes down immediately. This is a good hold so far by Guatemala, and a really dangerous fight in the Dominican Republic. We said they needed to come back, they need to win a round. This doesn't look like it. Fishy drives straight into 2 players. They still can't seem to get the frag. That is very unfortunate, and it's going to remain in a 3-on-4.
Just enough support coming out from his teammates there to keep him alive, keep him in it. The flush comes out as well, and just like that, they've picked up 2. Nice reset. The nades being traded out is, very costly for both these teams, but they're hoping for an entry knock. They're hoping to not walk into a 2-man setup. As you can see, Inactive trying his very best to support with a bit of util. That looks looking like a good nade onto Legend. Oh boy, crazy bounce for the Guatemalan squad. And once they now figure out, okay, we have this warehouse clear, they know where Inactive is as well. And they can go clear. They can run it down. They have the shotguns out, the SMGs. They're all surrounding him from all sides. 4 sides. Can the shotgun do it? It's looking unlikely. It's looking like it's a little too much, a little too late. Inactive. He's dancing. He's weaving. But it's not enough. Dominican Republic, we had high hopes for them today, Felix. They've shown a little bit of brilliance in the Sanok, but they have fallen flat here. And probably going to be falling down to 6th after this.
Unfortunate. Very, very unfortunate. Because I would have liked that experienced roster to some degree to come back and show us that they deserve to be in Riyadh. Right now, they're not really. It's too inconsistent. It's just too inconsistent. If they would have performed like they did here and there for the entirety of the 11 rounds, for the entirety of the 12 rounds, excuse me, they will definitely be up there and in the run, but if you play inconsistent in a best of 12 and it's only top 2 teams advancing, it's just not going to be enough. There's no way around it. It's not going to be enough, and by the looks of it, that's exactly what's happening. So going into these next 3 games, it's going to be do or die. I think maybe even going into the very next game, it's going to be do or die, just based off of how much they need to catch up. And Brazil, still 4-man standing. Everyone's going to look at this. Argentina as well. Colombia, with 4-man standing, they are looking to increase the distance now on Argentina.
Argentina's 3 up. Argentina's just lost a member. Argentina is not staying clean in this late entry to the southern side. Chile moving into the warehouses. Put a few shots down range, but you saw there Argentina in the hospital area right behind them. You saw them getting themselves a good spot, but losing a member early, and that's got to sting, that's got to hurt. And especially after already having bad game after bad game, starting the 3rd one with 3-man is the thing you hate to see, the thing you want to see the least. To get into a good mood, to get into a confident swing, which is exactly what they need if they ever want to come back here.
Chile find themselves into very almost tough buildings, to be honest. Tough buildings to hold. If a foreman breaches, they wouldn't be tough buildings to hold if you'll be a foreman in there. With these positions, we've seen it go wrong for Brazil. Now they shouldn't be doing the same mistake all over again. We head on over to Ecuador. They will be taken out as well. It's tough for them. I'm talking Ecuador, obviously. I mean Panama. They will be taken out as well. Good shots coming in from Ecuador. Nothing really surprising here. I thought as soon as they were trying to cross the bridge, I knew that just wasn't gonna work. Ecuador really holding strong there. Good angles, good sidelines, and I think they expected this as well. Otherwise, they would have moved deeper into the city. So good awareness coming out from Ecuador. 39 points, still not enough though.
Who else as well? They've been hot dropping for this town for all the ERANGELs so far. And this time it's not a hot drop, but it's a bridge camp in exactly the same area. And Ecuador comes out on top. Circle about to pop on in. Brazil, far northeast, tons of space. Argentina, far southwest, solid ground, solid compounds. Chile, sitting in the middle, sitting pretty for now, but the circle does go away, a little bit more vulnerable maybe. Lost one or two of their cars around those two stories. Now the pop is going to come in and the pop is going to go right onto the crates. Bad news for Argentina, but not the end of the world. Good news for Brazil, as they are able to just lay claim to a big part of these crates, and if they flex out a little bit more, they can maybe even catch teams like Colombia, who just have made a much later move than Brazil has.
That's such a tough circle now. Yeah. Positions inside that safe zone are just too strong, in my opinion, for a best of 12 qualifier in a situation like this, and especially Brazil now. With that entry on towards the container area, has done almost half of what they've really had to do in terms of macro game, right? Which is finding a good spot on this one, finding an entry, finding any kind of opening. As you can see, other teams are going to be struggling with this, and that's what I mean. Yes, there's an opening inside the city, but if you have so many teams ready and waiting for you, it's going to get so tough actually doing anything. And look, Argentina is a good example of this. They're going to be forced to breach this now in order not to lose a player for absolute free. But what are you realistically going to do afterwards? Right? Even if you win this fight, and Ecuador is in a 4-on-1 right now, you still have to cross the street. You're not even inside the safe zone. So Ecuador is playing this one perfectly smart, the way they should be. Rema's trying to bring things back. He does get one frag, but he'll be immediately traded. And that's Argentina out. Done and dusted. That's the one runner-up team, once again, struggling today to get anything of meaning on the board.
Yeah.
And for the suspense of this tournament, that's just the ultimate knockout, unfortunately, because now Brazil is 30 points above already, and they're just now entering another fight towards the next contender. So 30 points difference, and they're still full 4 men up.
Yep. Argentina, it's not been their day. It's really just not been their day at all. Little boy finds one of USA. They've taken a knock here earlier. They're taking a bit of damage now. But they find one in transition. And that's a big scalp to take, because that's the team that wants to breach them. It's the team that wants to take them out of this container area. You can see now the little yellow dots on the minimap are the USA players. And killing one in transition here was massive for the approach and the ground that Brazil is taking in this game. Chile has made the move towards the containers, if I'm not mistaken. They have made the cross on over. And, that's another big knock. That's another big bunch of damage done. That's another res committed, another first aid committed. So lots of time gone out of the hands of that USA squad to try and make a move towards Brazil.
Alex, so far, the highest damage dealer in this round. Guatemala has been the first ones to arrive at the container area. And by the looks of it, will not be the last to leave, as Brazil is making strides now to take that title. Chile in front of them, Guatemala in front of them. Everyone has kind of secured their own place inside this container area. And the next couple of phases will decide who really has to take action against who. But I think one is for certain. Brazil is not getting out of this one. without entering a fight. Right? I mean, rotating out of it, yes, would be a possibility, but you'll just be shot out. So it really isn't. Just in theory, it is. Brazil, as a result, is going to have to fight in the next couple of phases at a potential disadvantage with the way that these two teams are positioned. The next phase, obviously, they won't have to move, not in this one, but the one after that, they really might, and that's going to be a problem now. One more team rotating in towards the northern side of them as well, which is the United States. They've got one player in the container, but the rest of them are outside. So Brazil has to be careful of having that information. I don't think they have at the moment.
Gotta make sure they don't get caught off guard there, but pretty much should be what they expect from the US squad to happen. Should be the play that they do expect. The question is, do they go deeper themselves? Do they stay on the edge here? It's looking like they want to go a little deeper. They're sending Diego out as well to make more moves and cover some ground deeper into the play zone. As we have Chile, we said, pretty close by on the other side of this. And ooh, that's an entry knock. That's Guatemala finding one. That's Guatemala taking one out of the car, I believe. That's a big entry for them. Uruguay, excuse me, not Guatemala. Uruguay on the approach, actually breaching on in and finding an open knock is big things. If they find something with a nade here, they could be a real problem to Chile.
Yeah. Nade comes over. Pops at just the right time. But not going enough to take anyone down. And that's the three-way fight I was warning Brazil about. Because look at this. They've got Chile in front of them, which is kind of the strongest team in terms of fragging. And they've got United States right behind them. So it's very likely that they will at least lose some kind of play, and that's never a good sign in phase 5. So their winning chances are going to be slightly hindered by that position inside the circle. Then again, they don't need to fight anyone just yet. In the United States, they're not known so far to take any kind of risk before they really have to. At least not if they have the positions they want. And right now they do. It's a really weird split, but it works out for all of them. Everyone's inside the same zone in phase 5. And the same cannot be said about some of these other teams. The circle is closing slowly but surely. And I think the next phase is going to give us a really good idea on who's really going to be taking this one home, or at least who's got the best chances. Because everyone right now doesn't need to fight everyone else. Everyone's kind of got a safe position inside this one. But yeah, as I said, I think the next one is going to give us a good idea. Is it going to send out and contain? This is an ending I haven't really seen before.
Should be a nice one for teams that love fighting. Should be a nice one for Brazil, Chile, and a lot of the squads around. Actually, I've made up my mind, all right? It's not Chile, like the US Americans would call it. It's Chile, okay? You can correct me from now on every time I say Chile. They're in a good spot here. They're in the center. They're very vulnerable out, though, I would say. One knock, and they could easily be separated into two duos, and one of them could easily just get completely pushed by one of the multiple strong teams around them. So tricky stuff happening for a lot of these teams. You can see Lorenzen well aware of the threats you were talking about earlier, right? They're in a tricky position as well. They have to make sure they don't get punched in from multiple sides. Suriname now, they haven't had the best few fights in the last game. Now they have a chance to do some work towards the Ecuadorian squad, but they as well have to get moving. They have to close this fight fast so they can move out to the water tower, Felix.
Yeah. Well, Nate and Trent.
No.
Yeah, he was not ready for it. I don't think he expected Ace to push up recklessly like he did. He didn't even have anyone to trade up in that building. I think he was downstairs, his teammate. So Suriname will lose Trent, unfortunately. That was that entry into the zone. And yeah, looking at his face, I said, I think this is going to give us a good idea on who really has a good chance of this. And Brazil and Chile are continuously running away with it. They're just the best ones at realizing when they have access to the zone and when that access actually gives you winning probability. And in this one, it really does. I think entering some of these container quadrants, so to speak, that just have better sightlines than others is really important in a zone like this. And they did. Look how much Brazil is holding. Look how much Chile is holding. Chile's got the best warehouses in there. They give you the best sightlines, and they're also really tough to push. At least you'll get to know when someone's pushing. The same cannot be said necessarily about some of these containers.
That's a crazy name from Dagas, by the way. Pibbles, unfortunate things. Suriname was so good in fights yesterday. It's a bit painful to see them have so little success today, but Ecuador is just better right now. 9 kills already, and they're looking for more. They're going a little bit overzealous there, I think. Daga's flying down the mountain. Has to be careful of where he's going. The USA is there, but Brazil at first is good there with open arms. Darian is the one who actually gets picked up, and Pinda Boy might actually have a pretty good time here, fellas. Alex. They might have a good time getting into the backlines of these US players.
Yeah. Might be a pretty good position for them. Little boy now with a double nade on towards Ecuador. That is massive, as it would secure them a couple of more points. And you had that theory that maybe even 5 points a game would be enough for them to safely qualify. That'd be a good start to it. And wow, are you kidding me? That was his nade.
Yeah.
Are you absolutely kidding me? I think Dargas has dropped back down. I don't think he got knocked all the way down there, but either way, what an impressive nade coming out from Little Boy. And even though he doesn't get that second flash, look how much it denies them. Look how much it slows them down. And also, look how much info that is being gathered by Brazil. Good stuff from the Brazilian representatives, as they will continuously hold circle center.
And a big knock as well towards Uruguay. They were the team who actually got an opening towards Chile and actually started making a move. Now they're losing the players that would have grouped up later. They're losing the support that could have come out from the buildings. That's going to make that fight around the warehouses so much harder. And it's going to tell Chile as well, okay, we're not fighting a 4-man here. We actually just have a 2-man to deal with in the warehouse right next to us. Good news for them, and something that they will keep in the back of their minds. And that's going to make things a little bit easier for them once they have to move out of the triple warehouses here.
What is it? Excuse me, what a circle shift. I had to actually think about who that really favors. And I thought Ecuador was surely going to be the next team to go out. Like, I was so sure of it. I would have put my hand into the fire for this prediction. I thought Ecuador was going to be the team to go out of it. But it looks like an ending inside the actual containers is not possible. Otherwise, I can't really explain this shift. And with that being said, Ecuador has now got a chance of actually winning this one. And Ecuador, 10 frags already.
Yeah.
All these teams down in the second part of the leaderboard making somewhat of a comeback. Let's put it like that. But none of these teams actually having a consistent enough of a comeback, at least now with 3 matches almost being played, to really, really have a say at the first 2 spots. And that's what's kind of depressing about this. Even if Ecuador wins this round, they clean up so many more frags, they get everything done, they wipe maybe 2 more teams, then there's still nowhere near qualification. It must be frustrating for them to some degree, so they need another good round. Even after this one, you can see 45 points, and that's already 10 frags being included. That's how unfortunate it is. The kid, though, on the other hand, for the United States, will grab Alex, who's been the top damage dealer up until this point, as the rest of the Guatemalan players slowly but surely are falling to the hands of the Colombian players approaching.
I love this. I love this from Kidu. Well, really nice timing. He makes the run when he has to. Even though it's a big risk, he makes the run past and actually does stay alive, as the rest of his team won't have that chance. They're staying where they were known, and they are going to falter because of it. And he makes a big run. He makes a risky run. He was split off the whole time, and he does get rewarded in the end. Mujtaba finds the flush as well. That's a bad misstep from the Brazilian squad. Now they're going to give him another chance to get a first set off. They're going to give him another chance at a 1v1, maybe a 1v2, this time at least. Oh, I would say they're going to trade each other, but not really. Sports there finally, and they do close it out. But it's another one of these small missteps that you really hate to see when you're trying to close out games, and something they will really have to clean up once they're playing at the top level here. Losing one member in a 4 versus 1 is not the end of the world ever, but it's something you can't regularly do. It's something that will cost you so many games.
Yeah. It's something that's going to cost you very dearly indeed. And it's going to end your chances of taking more of a game like this. More nades now being thrown from Chile to hold back the Uruguay players approaching. Momonov from Pocho being chopped towards the players from Ecuador as well, and Colombia especially, as everyone kind of needs to cross their way over now from that eastern side. So many teams struggling to find any kind of footing. And in the meanwhile, Brazil happily taking all of them apart from the distance. More utility in their hands. Lorenzin with a massive frag against Daggers. And as he falls, that means it's only 80s left standing. Coming in from the eastern side, I think his cross is going to be incredibly tough too. But I think they played it smart. They intentionally didn't let him cross just yet. Wow, Lorenzin! He just takes that peak like it's nothing. Jumps around the corner, takes down Eddies. And I was about to say, that's smart because they know so many of the teams still have to cross from that eastern side. So the probability of someone dying before them is relatively high. So they've wanted to delay 80s crossing as much as possible. But if you have a player like Lorenzin just jumping on the corner like a madman, that's just not going to happen. So Brazil with more frags and 7 LMs. And I keep on saying it, and I hate to say it as well, but it looks all the more unlikely that anyone else is going to be able to catch up.
Good stuff from Lorenzin. He's also one of the top damage dealers for the squad, and he shows us why. Big moves, by the way, from Kido for the US squad. He keeps getting knocks in, he keeps getting damage in, he keeps making this absolute hell for Colombia. Now, he wants to get that nade out before the enemy nade explodes. You can see that so nicely done. Instantly resets the nade cook timer so he can wait out the nade and still get his own out. Can find another knock. Legal comes around. Third person camera is helping a bit. But it is Little Boy in the end who closes things out. It's another kill though for Kido before he falls. And he's making big moves. This feels like the game though. Look at the angle from Little Boy here. He's going to get so much information. And he's going to have such a good game plan here to be thought out for the rest of the Brazilian squad.
What a position. I mean,
look at the nades he can throw.
That's nuts. Yeah, that is just nuts. Little Boy has an overview of the entire circle. That's the nade raining in. Doesn't do any damage, but he doesn't need to either. Look at his teammates. They're standing there perfectly positioned to just greet the Chile players as soon as they come out of the containers. And Pocho, he needs to stay alive under any and all circumstances because he's been the biggest fragger. But I think Diego knows that he's going to be coming around this corner any second. Now, DBS in hand. Isn't he the DBS? The S12K. Pocho goes down. That equalizes things, but he'll be traded almost entirely by his team. Obviously by Chile's team here, and it's another quick 1v1 trade, but I think Little Boy, he's going to be able to secure this. Look at his angles. There's no chance. Chile is going to walk into him with open arms, and he'll be able to pick them apart as soon as they exit the blue zone, and yeah, they do. Little Boy, what a performance, what a position, brings back and brings home the chicken that they've lost in the last round, unfortunately, for any Brazilian fan. But does it really matter, Kovo?
I mean, it doesn't matter anymore. It doesn't matter now. I think I said 5 points per game. They've just gotten themselves 22. So they've just gotten that point threshold without playing the last 3 games. And I think they've just locked themselves in. They're fighting for first place with Chile now. They're fighting for who wins this tournament. But we need crazy things to happen if we want anyone to catch that up. Even if they stop playing now. Even if the top 2 teams stop playing now. We need a massive performance from someone in 3rd, 4th, or 5th. And even though a team like Ecuador, for example, play a massive game here, like he said, they push themselves up the leaderboard, but they don't push themselves close enough to the top 2. They just push themselves close enough to literally everybody else. Brazil and Chile just look so hard to beat right now.
Yeah, look, I hate to say it, and it's tough for me to get hyped about this win now, because it's been a well-thought-out win. Yes, I mean, Circle played a part in it, and I said it from the very beginning. The toughest part is actually finding good footing inside container. And they had that phase 3. I think that's when I said it already, right? If you get an entry early into this, and you know where it's going to end, you can just pick the best spot inside container, and everyone's going to have to move towards you. But that part paired with Little Boy's spot was still a really great play. But ultimately, as I said, it didn't really matter because Brazil just is that consistent. And Chile is as well. And yes, underdogs have come out today as well. Really strong, picking up rounds. I'm talking Colombia, I'm talking Ecuador now with a good performance despite the circles not going their way. But if these teams continue to perform just based off of day 1, it's not going to be enough. And with 11 teams only, a round like this, once again, is going to be incredibly tough to be caught up on. And almost impossible now with 3 games to go. And that, man, I hate to say it. I really hate to say it, trust me on this, but I think this might have been the decision right now. I look back at all these qualifications. None of these have been that decisive.
Yeah.
So far.
None of them have been this clear cut. None of them have been this obvious from a early point onwards. And I think yesterday we said, okay, this is looking like it might get interesting, but we're not feeling like Argentina is on the same level. And today that has kind of materialized. It's a really, really good game for Ecuador. It's a really good game for Brazil, of course. But when you're switching over to the match standings and you're switching over in a second, especially to the game standings, the overall leaderboard, you're going to see that things are slipping out of reach. Colombia, excuse me, not Ecuador. 8 elims for them in this game. This is not the match leaderboard that we actually wanted to look at. Okay, there we are. It wasn't Colombia. It was Ecuador. Okay, I was right. Stats are a little bit bugged at the moment. But yeah, it's gonna become a question of how high can you get on this leaderboard? How far can you push yourself? But maybe it does not become a question anymore of can you actually qualify to the World Esports Championship?
Yeah. Unfortunately, I think that might have just happened with their last game. Ecuador, nice performance still. 80s especially, 7 eliminations. And even Lorenzen, who got gifted quite a few just based off of his position, really can't compete with that. 80s fighting his way through to the western side. A lot of isolated fights also meant he essentially beat 7 different players in that game. So let's take a look at these match standings. This time around, really good shout out to production. They fixed this one really fast. But yeah, Brazil 22 points. Man, Chile still 10. Once again, I hate to say it, but this is their qualification, and especially for us as a caster, man, we hate to see something like this because we want to keep the suspense up. But they just look unbeatable, and we gotta give it to them as well, just deservingly up until this point. These two teams are the most consistent, are the most dangerous teams as well. They can never be count out, and no one else so far has really shown that consistency. And due to the fact that we only have 2 spots, yeah, everything we've seen so far, it's deservingly the leaderboard situation that we have at hand, right? With Brazil and Chile both running away with it. There's another 12 points of difference between Brazil and Chile that now gets closed down, but no one's there to catch up on that distance. No one's there to equalize the distance to get to Brazil or Chile in the first place. So it keeps on being these 2 teams.
Yeah, and it's gonna have a little bit of look at the team head to head, and it's gonna be an interesting story of how well Ecuador played this game, but look at the damage Brazil was able to farm. But it's, again, the overall standings are what matters in the end. Not a lot of people are gonna remember what a cool game Ecuador played in the North Georgia Bowl area in match number 9 of the qualifier. Teams will remember that Brazil went. Teams will remember that Brazil went to the World Esports Championship, and that's the one that stays, and that's the one that sticks. And yeah, that's now a 31-point gap with 3 matches to go. It is a 46. Wait, it's a 41-point gap. Jesus Christ, Felix.
That is nuts. As I said that, what I just said, right, with Brazil and Chile running away, I thought there was this tiny voice in my head that said, maybe I'm over-exaggerating. But honestly, I'm really not. I might be under-exaggerating with that current leaderboard situation. 41 points is the difference between second place and a non-qualifying spot, which is Argentina, that really have done nothing today. So the rest of the teams that have performed nicely, Colombia, Uruguay, even Dominican Republic, and Ecuador to some degree, these teams are still nowhere close to it. These teams are half of what the top 2 teams, the qualifying spots, have. So if that doesn't show you guys out there that, yeah, this qualification unfortunately has been really clean and cut from the start for these 2 teams, I don't know what does. But yeah, getting back to the match MVP in this specific game, it's been 80s, 7 eliminations. It's got to be the player to be highlighted there. It's got to be good for them as well. They're representing the nation really, really well. But in the end, I mean, experience does shine through, and experience, as a matter of fact, is what Chile and Brazil, in terms of their individual players, have en masse.
Yeah, and somehow Mystic is still clinging onto the top 5, as we have a look at the top performers halfway into the day. But it is dominated by Lorenzen, by Diego, and even though Chile has been quiet today, we still have Milovan and Simple there at the top. 20 elims in 9 matches is absolutely mental for Lorenzen, and especially high impact ones as well. Maybe not this game, but the last game he got some really big ones into Uruguay coming out of the compound. So great stuff from the Brazilian squad, especially today. Insane stuff from Chile yesterday. Not today, but Brazil is the one that's really picking up the slack today, and they're just a league above the rest. But rest is a good topic. We're going to have some rest. We're going to go to a short break, and then we have 3 more matches of PUBG Mobile Esports for you.